Victorian election coming up fast, let's take a look at what the two main parties Victoria decides public transport. Just a quick side note, the coalition will seem to have less pledges than the Victorian Labor government. The reason is because the Victorian Labor government has been in government for the past 8 years, and the Victorian opposition has been in opposition for the past 8 years. So the opposition is more like playing catch up right now with all their pledges. While the Labor government has had 8 years to create many authorities like the Level Crossing Removal Project, Metro Tunnel Project, Airport Rail Project, Regional Revival Project, Suburban Rail Loop, which are all under Victoria's Big Build. Okay, let's start with the Suburban Rail Loop. The Suburban Rail Loop is a train connection from Cheltenham Station on the Frankston line to Clayton on the Pakenham Cranbourne lines, to Glen Waverley, up to Box Hill on the Belgrave Lilydale lines, then potentially creating a rail link to Doncaster. It continues to travel through Heidelberg on the Hurstbridge line, Reservoir on the Murden line, Faulkner on the Upfield line, Broadmeadows on the Craigieburn line, and then maybe linking all the way to Melbourne Airport, and then Sunshine Station. The Suburban Rail Loop is still in its early stages, with the work on the line just getting started not too long ago. The Labour Party has clearly stated they will not be backing down on the Suburban Rail Loop, and that it will be built creating jobs along the way. But the coalition has thrown the future of the rail loop in shambles, promising if they are re-elected this November,
I'll reprioritise every cent available of the Box Hill to Cheltenham railway line and stick it all into fixing our healthcare system.
We had an audit, it was called an election.
But importantly, Mr. Guy has said he won't rip up the plans.
When the state can afford it, we might be able to build it. But the key point is, what's the priority now? You can't do both.
As the price tag for the whole project has already skyrocketed past $100 billion. The coalition has stuck to their 2018 pledges, because now we're going to be moving on to train line extensions. Clyde is a growing suburb in Melbourne's southeast, just south of Cranbourne. The suburb is just out of reach for Melbourne's train network. Residents there have been campaigning for an extension to Clyde, with them getting successful in the 2018 Victorian state election. In 2018, the coalition pledged nearly $500 million to extend the Cranbourne line, but Labor argued the line should be fully duplicated before an extension took place. The night of 24th November 2018 came, and the rest is history.
The people of Victoria have today overwhelmingly endorsed a positive and optimistic plan for our state.
Labor has since then duplicated the line to Cranbourne, and works there are slowly finishing up. The coalition has already pledged an extension, sticking to their 2018 promise. But we still haven't heard from Labor whether they will commit to an extension or not. Another suburb that is wanting an extension is Baxter. The Frankston line has the most stations compared to any other line on the Metropolitan train network. But the line does continue to travel further, travelling down towards the Mornington Peninsula, finally arriving at Stony Point. The line is operated by 2 diesel sprinters, connected as one train set. It has extremely infrequent services, with a total of just 10 services travelling up and down in a day, compared to the Pakenham line, which has around 70 plus services on one weekday. The last 2018 election saw cause of electrification to Baxter. The Victorian coalition again listened and pledged $225 million, matching the federal government funding pledge. Again, we all know how 2018 played out and who won.
Friends, the people of Victoria have today overwhelmingly endorsed.
This coming election, Matthew Guy is back with the same pledge to extend the line to Baxter. However, this time the price tag has soared to $750 million. Along with the highest price tag, an independent infrastructure body said the project could create, and I quote, extra pressure for housing developments. Instead, it suggested new bus services in the area, as with the Clyde Rail extension. We are still waiting on Labor to announce any pledges for an extension. Station upgrades have been a big player from Labor, with Labor announcing updates to many stations in the west and one station in the east. Labor has announced upgrades to Albion, Melton, Sunshine and Boronia Station. Albion Station in the west of Melbourne will be entirely rebuilt to become more modern. Sunshine will become Sunshine Super Station, with the station having connection to Melbourne's airport rail connections and more regional train services. With the new platform being built, it will offer more V-Line trains. It is expected to be finished in 2026. Melton Station is set to be rebuilt and overhauled. The station would have extended train platforms to fit 9-carriage velocity trains to improve more services and more passengers moving about. Boronia Station is the only station that's not in the north or west of Melbourne. Boronia is situated in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. The station is in a dugout trench, with no level crossings on either side of the station. Rebuilt Boronia Station would include a deck over the Southern Rail Trench to create new pedestrian space and community spaces. From the coalition side, the coalition has only announced an upgrade for Beaconsfield Station down on the Pakenham line. They would upgrade the station's facilities. And with station upgrades done, let's move on to new stations. Along with the station upgrades, Labor has further pledged within the $200 million rail investment for west and northwest of Melbourne, new stations at Tarnett West, Keilor East and Truganina. Tarnett West Station will include a pedestrian crossing, 4 bus bays and parking for up to 400 cars. The new station will be located on Davis Road. Keilor East Station is set to be completed in 2029. Around the same time Airport Rail Link is opened. It would include turn up and go services around every 10 minutes, and it's set to only take 6 minutes from Keilor East to Melbourne Airport. Truganina is another station to be built, though not much information about Truganina Station has been released. The coalition has not announced any new station pledges as of yet. Level crossings. 7 to 8 years ago, in 2015, the Andrews Labor government formed the Level Crossing Removal Authority. It was in charge of removing the first 20 crossings in Melbourne. Today, there have been 67 crossings already removed by the Removal Authority. The Pakenham, Cranbourne and Lilydale lines have become level crossing free. The goal is to have 110 level crossings gone by 2030. That does mean every year from next year, 2023, there will need to be 13.75 level crossings gone every year. Labor has pledged another 10 crossings to be gone by 2025, which is under the required amount to have 110 gone by 2030, unless of course somehow the construction blitz is sped up. Sticking with the topic transport infrastructure and lines, let's take a look at the almost completed metro tunnel. By now, I am sure everyone in Melbourne would understand what the Metro Tunnel 1 looks like. But a basic intro, it would connect the Sunbury and Pakenham-Cranbourne lines, creating 5 new stations: Arden, Parkville, State Library, Town Hall and Anzac. Construction started in 2018 and is set to open in 2025, costing already over $12 billion, which is already $1.88 billion over the original budget cost in 2017. The coalition wouldn't cancel the project as it's almost finished, but it would likely scale back its funding on the big build, which would scale back its funding on Metro Tunnel. Airport Rail Link is something both Labor and the coalition have pledged to build. Labor has claimed to have the Airport Rail Link open by 2029. Melbourne Airport Rail Link will connect Melbourne Airport to Victoria's regional and metropolitan train networks. Trains will run from Melbourne Airport towards the all-new Sunshine Superstation and then into the Metro Tunnel 1 and into the Melbourne CBD before travelling down to the Pakenham and Cranbourne lines. The system would work something like the Queensland Rail Network would, where trains from via City Lake travel up to Helens Vale, which is on the Gold Coast, then travel up into the CBD of Brisbane. Once arriving in Brisbane, the train will continue up to Brisbane Airport. So this system would work something like that. But it has slammed the Labor government for linking Airport Rail Link and Suburban Rail Loop as one project. Geelong Fast Rail. Geelong Fast Rail would create new track corridor from Werribee to Geelong. Services to Geelong at the moment travel through Southern Cross, heading westward to Deer Park, then south to Wyndham Vale. A new track corridor would cut travel time by 15 minutes. The trains would use the existing tracks through the Werribee line. A new express track would be constructed from Laverton to Werribee. The coalition didn't pledge the exact same thing, but have pledged a Geelong Metro type service. The Geelong Metro will be delivered by repositioning existing Sprinter railcars for Geelong commuter services and increasing velocity trains on other lines. There would be commuters rail services from Colac, Bannockburn and Werribee to terminate at Geelong Station, as well as new stations at Bellpost Hill and Bannockburn, and reopening Mariac Station. This would be a part of the coalition's $2 fare rate. If elected, the project is set to be completed by 2026. Finally, above all the regional train line upgrades, they are all under the Regional Revival Project. The Regional Revival Project is where the Victorian government has pledged to upgrade every single regional train line in Victoria. It includes upgrades to train stabling in Arat, more train services each week for Ballarat line, 3 new stations and more services to Echuca. There would be station upgrades to Epsom, Eaglehawk, Donnybrook and Wallan stations. There will be more frequent services on the Geelong, Gippsland, Ballarat, Shepparton and Warrnambool lines. Now, the Extraplus 2.0, or as some call it, HCMP 2.0, whatever you want to call it. The Victorian Labor government is pledging around $1 billion to build this new fleet, as well as modernising the Victorian train fleet. The Extraplus 2.0 will gradually help out to phase the old Commons trains, which are Victoria's longest serving and oldest trains. The train is set to run on the Cranbourne, Upfield and Frankston lines from 2024. It will be made in Ballarat by Alstom. The coalition has announced they will audit the new V-Line fleet and make disability access on all V-Line trains. The coalition have claimed disabled passengers were forced to travel in cargo hold carriages. I have fact-checked this, and a reported incident I found was when a man was forced to travel with luggage in 2006. Staying with V-Line, the coalition has now pledged half-price V-Line fares, as well as the $2 Metro cap. Keep watching to find out about the $2 Metro cap. They have promised to halve the price, with the shadow public transport minister Danny O'Brien saying the policy would halve V-Line yearly fare revenue from about 100 million, based on pre-COVID figures, to around 50 million, leading to a total cost over 4 years at about 200 million. Mr. O'Brien said the coalition's policy would deliver thousands of dollars in savings for regular everyday commuters travelling between Melbourne and regional Victoria. Meanwhile, Labor has announced it would cap V-Line fares to metro fares. The max metro fare in Melbourne is $9.20 for full fare, and concession is only $4.60. Labor says daily fares from Geelong to Melbourne cost up to $27.60. It's up to $68.80 for a ticket from Bendigo to Melbourne, up to $45.60 from Ballarat, and up to $53.60 to travel from Shepparton to Melbourne return. However, I do question the funding and the economic part of slashing V-Line fares, as the high fares are used to do maintenance and upgrades. Although I do acknowledge the amount of government subsidies and funding V-Line receives from governments. Let's talk about metro fares. Right now at the moment, the maximum amount you can spend, this cut would cost around $1.3 billion over the next 4 years on the Metropolitan Train Network, is $9.20. Mac Guy has announced a huge Metropolitan Train fare cut, cutting the fare by 80% from $9.20 to just $2 for a full fare card holder and only $1 for a concession holder. This recent pledge has caused a lot of controversy, with the coalition not releasing much information about how it would be funding this. And on top of all this, the Department of Transport has announced it would actually cost $900 million more than first announced from the coalition. But the announcement became a fire starter, with the Victorian Labor government and the Victorian Public Service being under fire for this announcement. However, we won't go into any of that because that's just politics and it's got nothing to do with public transport pledges. As well as the extreme fare cut for public transport, the coalition has also pledged free public transport for Victorian healthcare workers. It is expected to cost $110 million for the next 4 years. Shadow Health Minister Georgie Cruzier says it will be extended later on to nurses, allied healthcare workers, patient transport orderlies, dental assistants, midwives, aged care workers, and paramedics. Let's talk about trams. We have a couple of tram pledges, all from the coalition. Let's start with the tram extension to Doncaster for Route 48. Route 48 serves Victoria Harbour Docklands to North Balwyn. $102 million will be spent to see this Route 48 tram extend 3.75 kilometres from Balwyn Road in Balwyn North through to Westfield Doncaster Shopping Centre. This means Westfield Doncaster will finally get a proper train/tram connection. Doncaster, for many years, has been left out of Melbourne's growing train and tram system, with only buses operating to and from. Currently, the closest train station is Box Hill on the Belgrave-Lilydale line, and that's over 3 kilometres away. Extension of Tram Route 3 to Waverley Road to connect with East Melbourne Station. Route 3 operates from East Melbourne to Melbourne University. $42 million will be spent to extend the tram. Currently, the Route 3 tram terminates at the corner of Waverley and Darling Roads. East Melbourne Station is still 800 metres away. Extending it just by 800 metres, it will be able to connect to the Glen Waverley line at East Melbourne Station. Tram extension of Route 75. In the 1999 Victorian state election, Labor promised a tram extension of Route 75 to Knox City. However, that was an empty promise, with the promise being abandoned. The Route 75 tram is Melbourne's longest tram route, travelling from Central Pier Docklands to Vermont South. $134 million will be spent to extend the route by at least 5.1 kilometres. It is expected to be split into 2 directions, one being extended all the way to Bayswater, Mountain Highway, which would become around a 10-kilometre extension, and the other towards Upper Frenchy Gully, around a 12-kilometre extension. Spanning a huge route, the line to Upper Frenchy Gully would be almost 33 kilometres. It is set to include a number of new tram stops and a new terminus proximate to Swinburne University. Okay, the final tram one. The Andrews Labor government has announced a new tram. It will deliver more comfortable, accessible and energy-efficient trams. The G-Class trams will be built by Bombardier, which was recently acquired by Alstom. The new trams will include space for more passengers than Melbourne's older high-floor trams, the latest accessibility features to make it easier for everyone to travel, onboard energy storage to reduce power use and network costs. New trams will help to enable the retirement of some of our longer-serving high-floor trams, from the Z to the A classes. The tram design is set to be finalised in 2023 and set to be in service by 2025. Keeping with the Melbourne tramway tradition, the new trams will be the 7th generation of trams for the Melbourne network and have been assigned the letter G, because G is the 7th letter of the alphabet. G-Class trams will also receive individual vehicle numbers starting from 7001 or 7001. Along with the new trams, a new maintenance and stabling facility will be built in Melbourne's west. The new facility will be built on part of the old Victorian University site at the corner of Williamson and Hampstead Road in Maidstone. Okay, final train one. The Lilydale line is situated in Melbourne's east. Double track ends at Moolbach Station. The Coalition has pledged to run a feasibility study for the duplication of the Moolbach to Lilydale set of track. It is expected to cost around $5 million. The Coalition claims the Lilydale line is Victoria's worst performing train line, with many cancellations and poor punctuality. I have fact-checked this, and the last result I found was in 2018, where I can confirm the Lilydale line is the reported the worst performing train line, with many cancellations and poor punctuality. Remember, this is in 2018. According to the Coalition, the 4.7-kilometre stretch between Moolbach and Lilydale is the longest section of single track on the Metropolitan train network, and the key cause of train delays and cancellations. Only duplicating the rail line will remove the congested bottleneck and allow more frequent train services. Okay, this has not really got to do with more transport infrastructure, but it's about debt. Victoria has huge debt, and according to the Liberals, we have higher debt than Queensland, New South Wales, and Tasmania combined. This is true, but only in 2025. The Coalition has promised to rein in billion-dollar infrastructure debt as part of the Coalition's Recover and Rebuild plan. They will commission an urgent independent audit of all Labor's capital projects over the value of $100 million. Re-establish a Parliamentary Public Works Committee to ensure better scrutiny of major infrastructure projects in Victoria. Okay, finally, let's talk about buses. Let's have a speed round for buses. Time starts now. The Coalition has pledged way more bus pledges than Labor. Let's start with the Coalition's bus service connecting Ballarat to Smithsdale. The Coalition will extend the Delcoon bus route 25 to Smithsdale and Haddon. They currently have a V-Line bus, but with just 3 trips per day. It will go along the Glenelg Highway and back via Haddon, with 2 bus services to the town every hour. Labor will extend bus services in Medingley, which is on the outskirts of Bacchus Marsh. They will extend bus route 433 up into Stonehill Estate. Labor will deliver a new bus service for passengers in Eynesbury, connecting them with Melton by public transport. The bus service will run between Eynesbury and Melton. The Coalition has promised a new FlexiRide service for the Sunbury area. The new FlexiRide service will operate from 6 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. on weekdays, 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. on Saturdays, and 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. on Sundays, as well as public holidays. The bus service will not have a fixed route, with passengers able to book a service and be collected at their nearest pickup location, and transported to dedicated locations around Sunbury. This will be included in the Coalition's $2 flat fare rate. $160 million package from the Coalition will be spent to see improved services in Melbourne from western suburbs to Box Hill and down to Mornington Peninsula. Regional towns and cities will also have improvement services. Greater Geelong, Ballarat, Shepparton, Mildura, the Bellarine Peninsula, a cross-peninsula public transport connection with the establishment of a new direct bus service between Hastings and Mornington will be formed by the coalition. Public transport uptake across the Mornington Peninsula is at just 3%, compared with 15% across metropolitan Melbourne, according to the coalition. They will deliver new bus service, 30-minute direct and regular service between Hastings and Mornington, going via West Park. Around Geelong, the coalition will relocate the Movable Street bus interchange to allow for a quick and easy commute. According to the coalition, the plan will open the entire Movable precinct. Okay, buses done! And in under 3 minutes too. Okay, just before we finish, we'll just do greens. I know it's been a long video. I'm surprised if anyone really sticks to the end of the video. The Greens will use crossbench influence to push for more train services. They'll upgrade South Yarra stations to allow new entrances. They'll manufacture 3,000 solar buses. They'll make public transport free for under 21 and have a $3 fare cap. They'll double the number of accessible tram stops. Just like to say thank you for anyone who's stuck around the end. This is like over a 20-minute video. I'm surprised if anyone did. If anyone is wondering, my sources are down in the description if anyone wants to have a look. It's a lot of sources. Okay, just before we finish, we'll rate both the Labor and Liberal parties over their public transport pledges and what's their scorecard. We'll start with the government. Labor's scorecard is 8 out of 10. Labor has gotten on with doing the Metro Tunnel. The Metro Tunnel is almost completed and is set to be open within a couple of years. And of course, they've also removed many level crossings. They've removed already 67 level crossings and they're going to do more. If the Liberals do get in, they'll cut down the ambitious plan. But of course, I do understand the Liberals are putting all the money into health, but except this is about public transport. So we're scoring Labor 8 out of 10. The coalition scorecard is 6/7 out of 10. I can't make up my mind through doing one. It's more in between. The reason why they're lower than Labor is because they aren't doing a lot of big projects. Labor has already completed a few projects. They're not going to do a lot of level crossings, which I said before. They're going to put all their money into health, but except we're looking at public transport here. However, they will do a lot of tram extensions and a few train line extensions. One thing that's a bit questionable is their metropolitan Melbourne public transport fare cap. $2 for full fare and $1 for concession at 80% cut. It will cost quite a bit. The coalition hasn't pledged as much for upgrades in regional stations in Victoria and regional lines, which is why they scored lower. The coalition has mainly focused a lot on buses. So yeah, and then just as a bonus, the Green scorecard for the ones I found so far is probably only a 4 or 3 out of 10, as they will push for more train services. That is good. South Yarra Station doesn't really need a new upgrade. It's more on the outer suburbs, like the coalition will upgrade Beaconsfield Station. Beaconsfield does need an upgrade. The stations that need more upgrades are in the outer suburbs, less in the inner city. But I do understand why they're doing that, because the Greens win more seats in the inner city rather than the outer suburbs. Public transport free for under 21. Don't know why they choose 21. Could have chosen 18, but you know. And $3 fare cap, better than the coalition, but I didn't receive much funding information. But what's good is they'll double the number of accessible tram stops, but didn't exactly pledge what tram stops. 2022, Victoria decides public transport. Now, the extrapolate Twitter, actually no, we'll go up and then down. Cut. Finally, above all the regional train line up to second last. Ready? 2022, Victoria decides. 2022, Victoria decides. Public.